Now, would you kindly continue watching this review? Good.
I come here to pay it back.
There's already a fight to win. The question is, which side you on?
Hey gamer guys and girls, welcome to the second edition of MaffmanJones Game Reviews. This one is Bioshock Infinite, the official sequel to the original Bioshock from late 2007. In 2007, Irrational Games introduced us to the marvelously haunting world of Rapture, and now, over 5 years later, we have the floating city in the sky, Columbia, in 1912, and you play as Booker DeWitt, a very arrogant, self-egotistical numbnut, and he has to find a girl to wipe away the debt. Essentially, you're a heavy gambler, and this girl got involved somehow, and she's in Columbia, so you have to go find her and retrieve her and bring her back to New York. Otherwise, you're dying, boy. And that was my vague synopsis of Bioshock Infinite, because I have to tell you guys, getting this right off my chest might sound like a hyperbole, but it's not. This game was one of the most emotionally engaging experiences I've ever had playing a video game. It was up to par, and maybe even exceeds in some aspects with the original Bioshock. And it's very memorable, and it's a story and a game that you will never forget. This is a very rare piece of art in the video game medium that just exemplifies the high power of fun, story, characters, every single aspect that you could think of from any great medium, all put together with great execution. Like I said before, the story is very emotionally engaging. Unbeknownst to you, you may not notice at first, slowly but surely, you're just pulled and just magnetized into the game, and by the halfway point, by the time that you meet Elizabeth, you're fully in there. Her character is a great partner and a great asset to you, and she's not a heavy burden because she has no life bar. You don't have to protect her. And the best part is that she throws you weapons, coins, everything that you can expect, and she helps you out and aids you throughout the gameplay. And she's really there to just engage and enhance the emotions of the story and progress the plot. Her relationship and overall bond with your character Booker DeWitt keeps the heart in the right place for the story. Just like with Rapture, Columbia is one of the most fascinating video game locations I've ever had the opportunity to embark in. The environment is extremely interactive. You can look at kinetoscopes, which are basically little short films. You have audio logs to progress the story even further. And when you first get to Columbia, there's just a good moment, a lot of moments actually to be had, where you can just walk around and just savor the moment. You have the allowance to just take a breather and smell the roses, and I recommend you do, because there is a lot to see in the beginning of this game before shit goes down. Unlike with Rapture, where when you got there, it was just dead from the get-go, here, it's a very upbeat place, and then once you get there, because you're the so-called false prophet, things start to dwindle down as the story goes on. The overall gameplay, in hindsight, isn't that special, but the capabilities and the assets within the gameplay are very fascinating. In one hand, you have a weapon, and you have the ability to wield two, and in the other hand, you have these vigors, which is basically like the plasmids from Bioshock. And there's not that many vigors, but the powers that are within each vigor are very diverse, and actually a lot of fun to use, including electricity, undertow, which lets you push your enemies. There's another one where you could possess machines to help you out in battle, and so much more. It may take a small learning curve to get used to the controller and the way that the functions work, but after you have the hang of it, it gets pretty easy. Including your skyhook, which you can use as a melee weapon, and you can use the skyline and just ride it. The best way I could put it is if the Disney monorail went off the rail. There's also a good variety of enemies in this game. You have your standard guys, you have your upper tier guys, and you have your extreme tier guys. There's a whole array of them, and they're all extremely relentless and unforgiving, and they will charge you and do everything they can to kill you. The AI is actually pretty extraordinary, frustrating at times, but really, really awesome to see. Once you get into a fight, you have to be on your toes 24/7, otherwise you'll be dead. And I didn't die for a good amount of the game, but going towards the end of it, I died a lot because these enemies are just ruthless. Including the handymen, which are basically the replacements for the big daddies. They're not as iconic, nor are they as scary, but they are very imposing and foreboding. They remind me very much of the Hulk, because once they see you, they just don't stop, and in 2 or 3 hits, if you don't do anything about yourself, they'll kill you. Saying what I could about the story, you start off with a lot of questions, and as you go on, you're left with more questions, and you have more questions unsolved than you do resolved, and it does become confusing and muddling, but it is worth it in the long run because by the final resolution and conclusion of the game, everything is revealed, and it's one of the most satisfying endings to a game I've ever seen. Along with the integration of a couple really awesome Easter eggs that just made me gasp out loud like, oh my god! The primary revelations that are presented to you at the end of the game are so mind-boggling that you'll be left just thinking about it for 24 hours or even further. I'm still thinking about it. It's been a few days, almost a week now. The ending could have failed very easily. It could have been a very terrible ending, very anticlimactic, but they built it up so well. And I bet on multiple playthroughs you'll notice things you didn't notice the first time around. You just can't help but applaud the storytellers behind this game. Because it isn't nonsensical and it isn't there just for shock value. It's there because it makes very logical sense within the confines of the story. I only have 2 main complaints concerning Bioshock Infinite. One is that at several times this game appears very laggy. And it might not be the game's fault. It might just be due to the limitations of the Xbox 360 and it shows that a new generation is necessary. The second is that in the later half of the game, the gameplay becomes extremely frustrating with enemies and bosses. There's 2 particular levels that really got to me, and they include a graveyard and zeppelins. I perished a gratuitous amount of times, and it probably is my fault because if you find the right assets, the right vigors, and the gameplay to use, you could probably beat these bosses with absolute ease. But it just became very frustrating. And it almost took me out of the game, but thank God the ending was so great because otherwise I would have been severely disappointed. Overall though, Bioshock Infinite encompasses everything that you want in a video game. Great characters, great story, an extremely inventive environment, a direction and definitive ending that is more ambitious and more thought-provoking than most novels or movies in this day and age. The classical music also plays a heavy role in the atmosphere, just like with the original Bioshock and Rapture with the 1950s music. Forgot to mention that this isn't much of a horror game like the original Bioshock was, but there's one moment in this game that, oh man, I almost had a heart attack. Bioshock Infinite is a 5 out of 5. It's MaffmanJones. I highly recommend it to anybody. I don't care if you're a gamer or not, you need to play this game for your own good. You'll thank me later. When we look back on games in this decade, Bioshock Infinite will be up there. It will be. This game's been out for quite a while, so if you have played Bioshock Infinite, or you plan to now, let me know anything about Bioshock in the comments down below. Please subscribe to MaffmanJones and like this video. Also check out Facebook, Twitter, and We Live Film in the info box. I am John Maffio, and I am very fortunate that the seceding city of Columbia never actually existed, because if it did, America would probably be really, really scary. I mean, it's already a scary place now if you think about it, but that place, external horrors. See you next time.
Get the girl! Let me go!
Tear it down. Tear it all down.